Hi everyone, Ed here from Shades of Vengeance. I'd like to welcome you to the Era Zone. Today I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through each one of the Era games. You're going to be getting certain material for them in our upcoming The Era Zone. And in fact, this live stream is a live stream for the Kickstarter for the Era Zone. So I want to take you briefly through each of the games, what each one tries to do. And please, if you have any questions at all, drop them in the chat. If you're in the Discord, you can drop them in the Discord. Without much further ado, I'm going to begin with Era the Consortium. So Era the Consortium was the first game that we ever published. And we're actually coming up to the 5th anniversary, believe it or not. I really can't believe it. But Era the Consortium is a science fiction role-playing game. And there we are. I've literally opened one of the most sci-fi, well, cyberpunkish pages by accident, genuinely. But the idea of Era the Consortium is that rather than playing just one kind of sci-fi, you can play literally any subgenre. So here we have a war against an alien race. Which I don't know how well you can see the image on the live stream. They generally don't come out super well, but this is a bunch of the aliens being hurt by a space-based weapon. I don't want to give too much away because the story is fantastic. So what this game offers is actually 500 years of history. And during that time, the situation changes. So, you know, I showed you the space-based weapon a second ago. This is a little earlier in the war. I'm flicking backwards through the history. And at this point, you know, the alien ships are a serious threat to the human ships. And, you know, space battles happen. Going back further, before they even met, you know, the first contact is described in some detail. And actually, the first contact is a very interesting little story. And we've even made a comic about that, which is called The Bug War. You can find that on our website. But as you can probably see from this area here, the first contact didn't go super well. Humans and the aliens did not get on very well. And unfortunately, things continued downhill from there. Now, I do just want to apologize because I know that A, the quality is not great. And I think that's just because it's a live stream. And B, I can't show you very much of the book, and that's because of my camera setup, unfortunately. There's not a lot I can do about it. So here we have, if I just move the book a little closer, we have first contact with a different alien species, which went very much better. These two lone humans ran into the Lutians, who are squid-like aliens that wear human-shaped suits to better interact with humanity. So, you know, you choose the subgenre of sci-fi you want, and Era the Consortium can provide it. There are a number of different alien races you can play. I'm just going to flick forward. There's details on all the planets in the Consortium and stuff. That's these images here and what you're looking at here. These are all the details on the planets. But the alien races, I'll just quickly go through. We've got humans. Unsurprisingly, humans are in the Consortium are much like humans are now. There's a huge variety of ages, genders, races, the lot. It's all there. Next, we've got the Lutians, who I mentioned a minute ago. Now, these are squid-like aliens that actually live in human-shaped suits to better interact with humanity. This is because they very quickly realized that humans are extremely xenophobic and you know, really can't be relied on to, shall we say, treat things in a mature way. Oh, I've skipped one. Next, we have the Zimians. The Zimians are an ant-like alien race. They're the ones which first contact didn't go so well with. There are 3 types of Zimians. The first on the left here is the Zimian worker. They're big and strong and tough. And then we've got the Zimian brains on the right side of this bit, which is those are obviously the intelligent ones. And finally, we've got the Zimian politicians. Now, these are the good kind of politician. They help the brains and the workers work together by sort of bridging the gap. And finally, we have the Volithi. So the Volithi are actually shape-shifting plants, which can take a variety of forms and gets a different kind of bonus. So we've got humanoid, we've got multi-legged down here, we've got no-limbed, and we've got a multi-armed form. So the Era of the Consortium game gives you all of these subgenres of sci-fi. It gives you the technology that you would expect from a sci-fi game of this sort. Here are a few implants that you can have, replacement bionic leg there, and bionic eye over there. And it gives you the sort of equipment you might expect as well, from rocket launchers to high-tech armor, suits that make you invisible, and even energy shields. So there's a big variety of what you can have, and it runs on the Era D10 rule set. Probably one of the most sort of standard of them, as it was the first to have it. As it was the first game to be published. It sort of runs off the most sort of central standard combination. The character sheet, which I'll show you in a couple of other games as well, it's got the implant section, the specialty section, and the background, which is, the background, the equipment's pretty standard. The top half is pretty standard across most of the games, but the implants and the specialties are the different things about this game. So that's Era of the Consortium, and this rulebook, as I said, was published 5 years ago now. We've actually got a big event coming up, so do feel free to join our Discord if you want to find out more about that, because I'm posting a lot of things about it. A couple of years ago, three actually, I believe, we published the definitive edition rulebook, which is very similar, but it contains 120 extra pages. Now, both of these books contain a number of campaigns, which are playable with what's in the book, and you can actually probably read that, I hope, on the live stream there. This is a couple of examples. So both of these books contain some campaigns and obviously some various different scenarios that cover all of the different subgenres that I mentioned. However, we've also got a number of expansions. It's actually 13, but I just picked this one up. This is actually one of my favorite books that we've ever written. I wrote this one with Jonathan Lewis, who is also the head of comics. He works very closely with me on the comics. And we wrote this together. This is our love letter to franchises like Alien and Dead Space. A group of individuals are trapped on a ship and are attacked by they're attacked by various nasty creatures and have to try to survive and escape the ship. I mention this just because it's actually one of the examples of something that you can see in another game where I've integrated durability into Era of the Consortium, because many of these rule sets are actually combinable. Era Survival contains the durability rules, and I actually transferred them over. So this is Revival. As I said, it's one of our 13 expansions, and we offer a large number of scenarios, but what the Era Zone offers, at least issue 1 offers, that none of these have, is actually a unique campaign based around the year 450 CE, which is actually after the end of the events in the core rulebook, but during the events of one of the expansions, A New Dawn. And it leads to some investigation, and it leads to a new mystery. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil you, but it's a really, really fun campaign. We actually played it at a recent UK convention called Contingency. We ran it as a multi-table event, and the same information that we used to run the campaign is actually in the Era Zone. So if you did attend that and you want to see it, please consider going ahead and checking that out. So next, I've got the second game, Era the Empowered. So Era the Empowered is a superhero role-playing game where you can choose the superhero of your choice. Now, if I flick straight to the back, you're going to see a very familiar sight. It's a very similar top half to the character sheet, but the bottom half is quite different. And that's because this is where the superpowers, the empowered abilities actually are kept. So with the empowered abilities, you can do pretty much anything that you'd like in terms of superpowers. I've actually got 45 examples in the core rulebook here. I've just opened on technopathy and technokinesis. And I don't know if you'll be able to read that on the live stream, possibly not, but it does give you all kinds of different abilities within that. And as I said, there are 45 possibilities, from density shifting, disintegration, even if you decide you want to go a little bit darker, form manipulation, you know, changing your body's shape, even alien origin is one of the options here. There we go. In Era the Empowered, we also include a large variety of settings, subsettings, and also a number of factions. I'm just flicking through the factions here. But we've got a large number of subsettings, which allow you to play, again, pretty much any subgenre of superhero game. So if you want to play a newly emerging, sorry, I'm just flicking back through the story just to show you the subsettings. So if you want to play a newly emerged superhero, you know, fighting your first supervillains, or maybe even working together as a team for the first time, you know, that's event 1 or event 0. Event 2 is when Atlantis attacks. There is indeed an Atlantis in the setting, and you can meet them and face them during their attack and find out what they're attacking for and hopefully stop them. In event 3, we've got escalation, we've got team-ups, supervillains and superheroes. Event 4, again, that's on the other side here. The old gods return, and believe me, they're not very happy with what humanity's done to the world. Event 5, the Assassin's Guild decides they're going to eliminate all empowered. That causes its own set of problems. Event 6, we've got the Empowered Department. So the Empowered Department tries to sort of organize the superheroes, but is there more going on? That's been the subject of a number of my Era the Empowered campaigns. The short answer is probably. And then finally, event 7, we've got the invasion from outer space. This is kind of the end of the story of this book, but I definitely have kind of more story planned. But the Hunger, an unknown being from beyond, turns up to Terra, which is not Earth, it is Terra, and decides it's going to devour all of the empowered. And what is humanity and the empowered going to do about that? So again, in Era the Empowered, we have a number of sessions that we offer. I've got them at the back here. Actually, I've just flicked straight to them. We've got a number of sessions. And what we're actually providing in the Era Zone for Era the Empowered is some more abilities. So you can never have enough options for superpowers. We're offering 2 new superpowers, which were not featured in the core rulebook. There is a limit to how much you can fit in a 300-page book if you want it to be 300 pages. But I think Era the Empowered, I think the 2 options that we've got are really fun. I think they're new and different to anything we've actually got in the rulebook already. And I think you'll like them a lot. So I'm going to move on to the next game, which is Era Liars. Now, some of you might be aware of Era Liars. Era Liars actually ran a Kickstarter not very long ago at all. And we funded a definitive edition rulebook, which I don't have with me. I've got the pocket rulebook and the original one that I produced, the deluxe rulebook here, which was my second book that I created, this deluxe here. And I'm just going to use the pocket rulebook because it fits the camera slightly better. The Era Liars, the idea is that you tell stories of your amazing adventures that totally did happen, for sure, definitely, yes. And you con the citizens of Yarnolf out of the golden glory that probably you rightfully deserve, right? Probably. And you know, it's a really fun game. We actually ran 2 sessions at our most recent convention, and it was extremely well received both times. Actually, no, I tell a lie. We ran 3 sessions at our most recent convention. It was extremely well received all 3 times. And what we're providing in the Era Zone for Era Liars is we're offering an essay on vampires and what they're really all about. Because although you may have heard stories, those stories are inevitably misrepresentative of what really is going on. And vampires are probably just misunderstood. And then the second thing that we're offering is we're offering a couple of new taverns. So there are a number of taverns in Era Liars that already sort of have names. And in the Definitive Edition rulebook, they also actually have a little more of an identity and a story behind each one. I'm sorry, the live stream quality is not brilliant, but hopefully you can see there's a map here with some markings on it, and each of these has a name: Eye of Newton, Creature's Comfort, and Ploughman's Lunch, Drunken Dwarf, Cheerful Vixen, and so on. Anyway, we're offering 2 new taverns in the Era Zone. Those are written by Heike Pravitzer, and she's done a fantastic job. I went ahead and edited her work just to make sure it was all sort of in line for Era Liars, because I'm the creator of these games. And yeah, she's done a great job. The Moldy Yam, and I'll be honest, the name of the other one escapes me just at the moment, but I'm sure it'll come back to me. So we are offering 2 new taverns and this essay on vampires for Era Liars. Next, we've got Era Survival. This was the 4th game that we produced and created. Now, what I actually did on this one is I got a genuine massive fan of the game, who also works with us, Fred Harvey. He actually wrote the campaign that's going in the zine, and he came back to me and he begged me to add more space for it because he wanted more. So it's a 3-session campaign, and again, we have some campaigns in this. The setting is a post-apocalyptic setting, but what makes this one different is there are actually 13 different factions, and each of them have a very different idea on how you should survive the post-apocalypse. And most of those ideas are completely incompatible with all of the others. So here's an example. We've got the White Cross, who produce injection. It's a substance that keeps the infection at bay, keeps the zombie-ish infection at bay. Whereas then we have the nihilists somewhere. Sorry, I've not actually flicked to the factions. I've flicked to the locations. But the nihilists are right around here somewhere. There we go. There's the nihilists, and the nihilists believe that it's too late. There's no point, and it's much better just to kill everyone and save them from the horror of infection. So as you can see, those factions don't exactly get on very well. But in the Era Zone, we are actually offering a 3-session campaign, along with some bonus material that was just too much fun not to include, to be honest. The campaign is based in a pre-cataclysm theme park, and the idea of zombies going while while the roller coasters stop for a moment and then there as it's kind of heads off again was too much fun to pass up. So there is some less serious bonus material that takes up about half a page, and the remainder of the sessions take up the 3.5 pages that I've set aside for Era Survival. Really fun campaign, really interesting, and really brings both Potestates and the Nihilists into a little more clarity, I think. So that's Era Survival. Next, I've got Era Silence. Now, Era Silence is based around the idea that you go to the Isle of Silence and overcome challenges to earn your name as a warrior. Some of the challenges are plain riddles, some of them are physical challenges along with riddles, and some of them are just sort of combat-based challenges that you have to complete. And the problem, obviously, with riddles is that once you know the answer, you know the answer. And it's really not going to be great for replaying. Now, we knew about this well in advance, of course, but the riddles are an essential part of the game, in my opinion. So what we've done is, first of all, we've included a few different riddles. And we have decided to enhance that. So Hiker and I came up with a number of additional riddles that can all be got from the Era Zone. It's 4 in all. Some of them are puzzles and some of them are puzzle combat combos. But it gives you all of these different options, and it means that you have a few more strings to your bow, if you'll excuse the pun in a fantasy RPG. It means you have a few more strings to your bow when you are attempting to sort of guide your players through the various challenges, and they can be switched out for pretty much any challenge, to be honest, these other ones. Next, we've got another pocket game, Era Hitman. Now, Era Hitman is inspired by games like Assassin's Creed. Excuse me, sorry. It's inspired by games like Assassin's Creed and Hitman, obviously. But the idea is that not only do you have sort of these assassination missions and skills accordingly, but you're also able to harness some amazing kinetic abilities from creating force fields or controlling materials, through to temporal manipulation, or even controlling the 4 fundamental forces of our universe, from electromagnetics, gravity, and even able to nullify the strong nuclear force in the target and turn them into free particles. Those of you who aren't quite so sciencey, that just means they vaporize. Ish. It's complicated. More complicated than even my sciencey background can handle. So please ask someone very, very smart if you want to know what happens if you were to have the strong nuclear force removed from your body. Anyway, for Era Hitman, we're doing something slightly different. We are offering 2 optional targets. One of them is a doctor who used to be part of the group, the Assassin's Guild, and one of them is an arms dealer who, sort of a remote country will pay a large amount of money for his elimination because a lot of his stock is there, and then they would never have to pay the bill, would they? So you can add those into literally any mission in Era Hitman. They can be added in an appropriate way. There's loads of details about each of the characters, how they behave, what kind of people they keep around them, if at all, because the doctor tends to be a bit of a loner. And also what kind of skills you can expect to encounter if you actually do go head-to-head with them. So that's what we're doing for Era Hitman, and personally, I think that's one of the more innovative things that we're doing. And finally, for Era Balam. So Era Balam is a sci-fi RPG where you play as fighter pilots, and you make up a squadron together, and your squadron goes out to fight aliens. And what we've done for this one is I'm actually offering 2 sessions that I have run at conventions over the last couple of years since I published this game. 1 year, actually, just a little over 1 year, I believe. And we're offering the 2 sessions that I have run. Everyone's really enjoyed them every time I've run them. And, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to offer these in the Era Zone, and there's more different stuff coming in issue 2, I can promise you. But in number 1, we've got water, and we've got the Hair Asteroid Belt, the 2 missions that I ran. So that's all of the currently published Era games. That's 7 games. Just to remind you them all again in reverse order, because that's the way I stacked them up. We've got Era Balam, Space Fighters. We've got Era Hitman, where you play an assassin with fast burn superpowers, but your target may also have superpowers. So you've got to be a bit careful. We've got Era Silence, where you have to earn your name as a warrior by completing various challenges working together. We've got Era Survival, which is a game about the zombie apocalypse and attempting to survive it. We've got Era Liars, where you tell stories of your amazing adventures and gain golden glory for all of your heroic exploits. We've got the deluxe edition there. That's just the deluxe edition of Era Liars, which I showed you earlier. We've got Era the Empowered, which is also the basis for several of our comics. We've actually got Blue Shift #2 coming out on Valentine's Day. Blue Shift and Valentine's Day very much linked for various reasons, not least because Blue Shift #1 came out on Valentine's Day last year. So just as a point of interest, this is Blue Shift down the bottom here. So we have Era the Empowered, where you get to play as a superhero. We've got Era the Consortium's Revival expansion, which, as I mentioned, is sort of a meeting between Era the Consortium and Era Survival. It's one of 13 expansions we have for Era the Consortium. And as I said before, we have the definitive edition of Era the Consortium, which offers 420 pages. It's got extra GM advice. It's got some extra. Oh, all you're seeing is white. It's got extra GM advice. It's got some extra material in the story. It's got about 100 extra pages of story, and it's got plenty of extra stuff that helps you with the core Era the Consortium concept, which is relating to playing any point in the 500 years of history. And then finally, we've got the Era the Consortium core rulebook, which I mentioned earlier. It's a 300-page book. It's still got absolutely everything you need to play. The definitive edition is more the book that I wanted to make, but I decided to stick to a 300-page limit to start with. And then when Era the Consortium was so well received, and it really was. And any of you who are on here watching, thank you so much. If you supported Era the Consortium, either when it first came out or more recently, I'd just like to thank you very much. Era the Consortium is now coming up to its 5th anniversary, which I think is absolutely amazing. I can hardly believe it. I suppose the one thing I've missed, well, two things I've missed actually, are the beginning and the end, because the middle of the Era Zone is devoted to all of the Era D10 games. But the very beginning is devoted to encounters on the edge of space. And this is a project that I'm very passionate about. You know, anyone who's met me, anyone who's spoke to me at any kind of length, knows that I'm extremely passionate about sci-fi. I really love it. And pretty much all of my games in some way come back to sci-fi, even the ones where it might not appear that they do, like the fantasy ones or perhaps the superhero one. They all come back to sci-fi in the end, for me anyway. And what Encounters on the Edge of Space offers is actually a set of bestiary entries, and I'm putting big sort of air inverted commas around that, for science fiction campaigns of any type. So they are setting neutral. You can use literally any setting that you want. Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, I had someone tell me they used one in. They're all available for free on our Patreon, patreon.com/SOV. And you can download all of ours to date on Patreon. But, you know, I believe that there are a lot of fantasy bestiaries out there, and there are very few which cover the kind of the sci-fi side. So I teamed up with a really nice guy, Matthew, who is a PhD in molecular biology. So he kept me on the kind of the straight science route to make sure that it was all pretty scientifically accurate. There are also some references to some famous biologists in there if you know certain things. But I really enjoyed working with him. We produced a fantastic set of things, and I've been producing them I've been producing them monthly on Patreon, and I'm including 2 of them in the Era Zone, just to try and help people sort of realize what it is that we are, that we're really all about, because we're really all about sort of the community and helping people play role-playing games in general, and for me, sci-fi games in particular. I really want to support that. So, I felt that adding Encounters on the Edge of Space into the Era Zone was a valuable and sensible thing to do. And then towards the end, I get a lot of questions about how I do what I do, why I do what I do, what made me decide to do it in the first place, that sort of thing. And I decided to reach out to a couple of people, really great people, who have interviewed me before on this kind of subject. So both Egg Embry, he's done more Q&As with me, written Q&As, than I want to say anyone else has, sort of written interviews. He's a really nice guy. He's always very accommodating of the stuff that we're doing. I asked him to submit 13 questions. He writes a lot, I write a lot. I didn't fit very many in this issue, but I'm going to continue onto the next issue, because I want to make sure that I answer all of these questions very thoroughly and make sure that everyone kind of gets what they want and need out of my answers. And then secondly, Dan Davenport, who is one of the, the most stalwart champions of indie RPGs, in my opinion, that's out there. He does Q&As on his IRC chat room, which is called Random Worlds. I want to say offhand it's tinyurl/randomworlds-chat. So please go check that out. They're a really nice community, really nice bunch of guys. I go on there every opportunity I've got. In fact, I'm on there on Monday about the Era Zone. He does Q&As with everyone, absolutely everyone. He's spoken with famous people, less famous people. Anyone who wants to go on there is welcome, and he will find a way to fit you in. He will work very hard. And he also submitted about 10 questions. And again, the way he asks questions, and I know him so well now, having been on sort of, maybe 20 times, certainly a lot. I would think it's around 20. If Dan's around and watching this, maybe he can comment. I don't 100% recall, but yeah, I would guess it's around 20. And Dan submitted a bunch of questions. I also answered those questions, and I was very pleased to do so. I'm just going to show you the back of this book, actually, because there's even back. We've got Lacuna, who can jump out of portals, and Penumbra here. Kajar, he's one of the Atlanteans, but doesn't work with them. The last few pages are taken up by the Q&As from Egg Embry and Dan Davenport. It's an absolute pleasure to have them around and able to talk about it. And just really, really great to be able to include some content from these guys who, honestly, they've helped shape, the people who hear about not just our games, but every indie RPG. So yeah, big thank you, big shout out to those guys if you're listening. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, and please keep doing it. I know that I wouldn't be where we are right now. I wouldn't be sitting here having, a number of people watching this if it wasn't for you guys. Okay, I really have run out of things to say at this point. So if you have any questions about Era games in general, about the Era Zone in particular, go ahead and ask. I'm right here. I'm open to questions. Oh, I've got one. What's my favorite Era game? Okay, it's not come up in the Kickstarter chat. It's in a private message. What's my favorite Era game? Well, I'm afraid that's very easy and probably won't surprise anyone at all. it's Era the Consortium. I love all of the Era games, don't get me wrong. But Era the Consortium was where everything started for me. I am first and foremost a sci-fi guy, and the opportunity to make a sci-fi role-playing game that really, someone told me the other day, and I was so deeply honored to hear this, but someone told me the other day that it reawakened their interest in sci-fi role-playing games. It saved sci-fi role-playing games for them, and I am honored. You know, I don't even know how to respond to that. It's one of the most wonderful things you can be told as a game creator, that's what your game did. So I'm not going to name names. I don't want to embarrass anyone, but if you're watching, thank you so much for saying that, because it really did make my day. You cannot imagine what it feels like to be told that. Are there any definitive editions for other games? So yes, there are. I don't actually have it down with me. It's kind of over there on my bookshelf. But there is a definitive edition of Era Survival. It boosted the book from 200 now you've got me 230 pages or so, all the way up to 300 pages. Again, we added a large amount of story. So yes, Era Survival does have a definitive edition. We added a large amount of story. We also added both of the expansions that we had made apart from the source book, which were the Infected Manual, that gives you 100 options for Infected, and the Tales of the Outlands, which gives you some information about what's beyond the kind of the obvious limit of the world that you can see on the map here. So sort of what's over down this way, and perhaps to the south. But yeah, that's what Tales of the Outlands is all about. So yeah, both of those were included in the definitive edition, along with, as I say, some extra stories. All of these are available on our store, shadesofvengeance.com/store. You can get absolutely any of our games that we've created whenever you like. If you have any burning questions, if you have something else to ask, if you'd like to know more, do go ahead and leave a comment on the Kickstarter, or even just drop us a message via Kickstarter, because I'm more than happy to answer any questions. You can also join our Discord or our Facebook group if you have any questions at all, and you can find our Facebook group and then find the Discord through that is probably the easiest. Our Facebook group is called the Official Era Games Group, brackets Era D10. If you have any further questions, if you'd like to know more before you pledge, anything like that, just let me know, and I will be more than happy to speak about it, advise you, let you know what's going on. Thanks again, everybody, and I hope you have a very pleasant evening.